On Christmas, I was meeting up with like the other side of things, like people who are roughly 9 years old.
Okay, it's live now.
Don't understand.
It's way better. It's literally way better.
The next flavor.
It seems funny when you get sliders made it. Everyone needs to
They all play. And one time, this is why I find this. So they were playing anyway. And they got disconnected. Like they would feel like they wanted to get playing.
How can they play?
But here's the thing. The school was
So like the right side was just did all
how
out.
it works for no reason.
Oh my
They went from like 5-5 to like they had one round to like
What are you trying to do?
and it was like a few times.
Yeah, good job, Doritos. Hey, it's Skippy the Kiwi.
Okay, you're relatively calm.
Are we clear? Are we heard clearly or?
We are live, yep, and I can hear you.
Amazing.
Because you're too calm.
That is secretly
Jungle.
We're not talking about
Oh, support that. No, that should be obvious. Fun.
Yes, I love support.
It's just legit.
Jungle my time, but even trying to get back, it's too stressful.
And then they can just say,
Here we go again. I was like,
Camera's there, camera's there.
yeah, it was there. You just look out to the edge, and then it's also kind of like a good in the way you but for your whole team.
Does everyone have a copy?
No.
Someone doesn't.
Yeah, I guess I'm like tanks.
One sec, I'm just trying to add the QR code, but yeah, you guys are good to go.
I was like, get everything out. You could play everywhere.
Even distribution of snacks. Yeah.
This
makes it look like all the snacks are hot and then not.
What you doing? She jumped into one steal and snare or something.
We put more chairs.
Hey, we got given an offer.
We're each representing our snack. And whichever snack you pick,
We got offered what snack to take.
We chose the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
Okay. Adam,
I haven't kidded.
when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Alright.
All right. Let's make a start. I don't do the teacher.
Thank you.
All right. Karen, welcome to our first exec forum. Woo! This is something new that we've. Okay, that was weird. This is something that we haven't done before, so hence the the delay in trying to set up a live stream, and also just in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. We understand that when someone says, "Hey, you should try out for the exec," it seems like a pretty daunting or weird request. So we thought it would be probably a good idea for us to actually have a conversation about it, and so you can ask the questions that you may be having. None of us have gone through this kind of process, so we kind of walked in blindly, so hopefully we're able to kind of fill in some of those gaps that you might have. The way tonight will work, Ophelia, do you want to go through that?
Sure thing. So we will start with questions about exec as a whole, and then we'll move on to questions about each role. We've prepared some of those questions ahead of time to help, come up with things we think people might want to know, and then after that we will take questions from any of you guys about those specific roles. And yeah, so please do raise your hand if you have a question after we've done the ready to go ones. And we've also got a Padlet on the QR code there, which is up there, so if you don't want to raise your hand, or if you're on the live stream, thank you, hello, you can put in your questions in there and we will get to there. If you come up with a question for a role later on, maybe chuck it in Padlet or just remember it and we'll get back to it at the end. So I think we'll go like questions about the president role, and then questions about the vice president role, blah 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 blah, and so on and so forth.
Cool. I forgot to say this. We were supposed to have Gemma, who was the past president last year, and our advisory panel chair to host today, but unfortunately she fell ill, so Ophelia and I are winging it, which means it's going to be a little bit. We're going to try and navigate as we go along. And Jack, who's our programs manager this year, due to a last-minute change of work, will be running late. So if he awkwardly just slides into one of these doors, or messages, "I don't know where to go," and one of us decided to leave, that is why. So he should hopefully be here by about 7:15. So if you've got any programs manager-based questions, we're happy to try and answer them as best as we can. But when Jack arrives, we'll try and cover his. Thank you to those who are joining on the live stream. We shall make a start. So we will start with just brief introductions. So just introduce yourself, the role that you hold this year, and a short summary of how you would define your role. It is a Doritos tasting session in disguise, yes, thank you. Adam, who's our logistics manager, is manning the live stream, so he's the one who will be popping in and out at different times, and when he speaks, I think you're turning the camera around? Or are you going to be a voice in space?
No, I'm not going to be a voice in space. Let me just switch to the front camera. It just takes a little while to turn on. Hi everyone.
Whoa, this is
Yeah.
a high-tech scenario going on here.
Alright, cool. So maybe we'll just go down the line.
Okay.
So it's easier, yeah?
Cool.
Do we stand up?
I mean, if you, it's your call,
It might
man.
be out of the camera. It depends how high.
Yeah, maybe not.
I'm not that tall.
I was going to say, John, I'm fine.
I'm Jono. I am the secretary for Stray this year. I'm so secretary is basically looking after the emails, looking after any inquiries, that kind of thing, just helping with a lot of aspects of the club, like newsletter and like the website. Just helping out where we can. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elliot. I'm the marketing manager, and I guess my role is just coordinating all of the marketing for shows and events, and yeah, overseeing the newsletter and stuff like that.
My name's Kieran. I'm the president this year, and I guess I would define my role as leading the team's vision for the year and making sure that we achieve those goals.
Hello, I'm Ophelia. I'm the vice president, and my role is sort of similar to Kieran's. I'm just sort of keeping an eye on big picture goals and, sort of looking at like all the little things we do in relation to the big picture of Stray and what we want to do in the year and that sort of thing. Yeah, and Josh appears to be sorting out some technical issues, but he'll be with us shortly.
So I'll just switch to me. My name is Adam. I'm the logistics manager. And then what was the other question?
What's your role?
Basically, my role is to help basically book rooms and offer basically advisory support in case offer advisory support like for operational and logistical purposes. So like being familiar with a lot of the university's processes and that kind of thing. The laptop's not charging, so that's what. Yeah, it's going now.
So the outlet wasn't working.
Okay.
That's fine. So we're just going to have a very safe cable just dangling over there. Don't worry about it. Hi, I'm Josh. I am the treasurer, and my role is basically just to manage all the finances of the club, applying for funding, making sure we have an achievable budget for the year and for the shows, and managing all the finances that are involved in each of the shows. That's my job.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you very much. So we'll start with exec team questions. These are just questions that I know I had before I came onto the exec. What does it actually look like? So we've just put together some questions that we would have liked answered when we came on. And then if you have any questions, again, just raise your hand or use the Padlet. So, exec members, you may choose to answer some of these. If you don't want to answer, that's fine, just as long as someone does. Yep. So what does an exec meeting look like?
Can you get started? Josh, go ahead.
I mean, exec meetings usually are sort of a place where we the exec gather to figure out all the sort of things that we're planning, either in the next few weeks or shows, giving updates on shows that are currently happening, planning for shows that are going to happen in the future. Especially like at the start of the year, we have a lot of meetings to sort of strategic planning meetings to figure out, okay, what this year is going to look like, what we're going to need to, how we're going to plan all our shows, how we're going to sort of manage those logistically, and then during the year, it's sort of updating on those as well as working out all the events, all the workshops, that kind of stuff.
Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, so everything Josh said, but additionally we start every meeting with a wellbeing check, just to, check in on how everyone's doing and their capacity for, doing tasks that they need to do that week so that we can help each other out and that sort of thing. Oh, there's a fun echo in here, I'm so sorry. Yeah, and we just sort of, we share updates about shows, so whoever's producing the show that's going on, sort of shares what they've been up to in the last week. Not every single tiny thing that ever happens, but just generally keeping the exec in the loop about how things are going, and we discuss any scenarios or marketing for things or planning for these. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Answering lots of questions as well, so that we know what's going on.
It's also going on some tangents.
Yeah.
Most of which I am responsible for.
That's the reason why we have so many packets of Doritos. We've argued for the whole year about superior flavors.
Yeah. If you've been to the open meetings, you'll know where we stand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also
Just we meet once a week. We usually meet in the university, and it's just a place for us to kind of catch up and make sure we're all on the same page and following the goals and visions that we have. And again, like Ophelia said, just to ask and answer any questions that we might have while we're doing the projects that we do. So if you worked on a show with us, chances are that we know progress throughout. We may not be visible, but we're aware of what's going on. And then if there's support that's needed from any one of us to come into a show, and you wonder why we just randomly appeared, it's probably because we just needed to either support in some way or we got curious, one of the two, because we're hearing such great things about what's going on. Cool. A common question that's been asked throughout the year I found is it possible to be on exec and study at the same time, or work at the same time, or is it too much to do it all at once? Anyone want to answer that?
I do all three.
I don't know how well I do it, but it's
How
definitely
those assignments, Josh?
We don't talk about those. But yeah, it's definitely possible. Because if obviously you have to prioritize, and it's if there will be times where you need to prioritize studies over exam, but it's not an impossible situation. It's just managing your time, managing your workload, and as well, we were talking about the wellbeing checks, being honest in those. It'd be like, this week, I have a 40% assignment. That's if I don't pass this, I fail. So I need to take a step back. And that's why there is a team, is so that that there's always support for each other as well.
I have a full-time job. I'm a teacher, so I was able to kind of do a bit of both at the same time. Again, it comes down to your own management of time. What do you want to achieve and how do you want to go about it? But just like Josh says, if you're honest about what your workload is like for that week, chances are if you're busy, someone else may be not as busy and can pick it up and support you. So even though we have specific roles, we all know each other's roles relatively well to be able to step in and support when needed. So that's just something that we learn as the year goes.
Yeah, just
If we're particularly busy with anything, other members can step in and just support us and not pick up the slack, but help us out when we need it.
Additionally, because we are a university club, we do sort of work to being aware of what's going on in the university calendar. So in particular, it happened this year, we had a show that rehearsed across semesters, low pay, don't pay. So we put rehearsals on hold over the exam period so that everyone could prioritise their studies, because we do sort of put university first, and very accommodating to the fact that if people have university stuff, they need to prioritise that first a lot of the time. So yeah, it can be a lot to manage, but it is also a very good way to work on time management skills and building skills that go both ways. So yeah, it can be a lot, but it's manageable.
Okay. Is there a hierarchy within the exec team? I can't.
Kyo just tells us what to do every week and we do it now. I really don't think so. There have been meetings where there have been a lot of discussions, and we're talking about, this thing is happening, what does everyone think? And that is definitely a time where it's sort of very important for us to be like, okay, we need to hear everyone's opinion. I've never felt that there's a hierarchy in the exec, and I really appreciate that, because I've worked in some other exec where there is a hierarchy, and especially with such a small team, that can go south real quick. Yeah.
Right on.
I definitely didn't have a script for yeah.
All I would say, I guess, is that at the end of the day, if we do need to just come down to a final decision, it would probably be the president who says, okay, right, we need to decide. If, usually we try to come to an agreement on things, but that's kind of it. Is that the president is just there to be like the final, right, guys, we need to make a decision, and if we can't, then we have an advisory panel, so we can ask them for help. But so they're not really. It's just.
Yeah, I'd say that we kind of work
On a model where if one person disagrees with a statement, we don't do a majority rule, we talk about it. We may not all be happy with the decision, but as long as we all agree on it, I think that's the most important thing. And I feel like we've been able to do that, hopefully. Yes, cool. Is there anything that you'd like to add to Adam? And just speak whenever you feel the need to, because I feel like we're so far away from it.
What was the question again?
Is there a hierarchy?
Honestly, let me just change this. Honestly, there isn't a hierarchy. To me, it's always felt like everyone, you value everyone's input equally, specifically because everyone kind of has different life experiences and they all bring different things to the table. So it's really important to kind of get that diversity of thought.
Okay, what is it like producing a show?
Jono?
Who wants to go first?
Josh.
Josh.
Recently, I just finished producing. It's a lot of work. I'll be honest, it is a lot of work, but it is very rewarding work. It's really. I don't think fun is the right word to describe it, but what I say is it's rewarding because you get to see. Obviously, being in the show and stuff is fun, but the actual producing stuff, it's rewarding more than fun because you get to sort of see everything materialize and everything come together, and bringing everyone onto a team and seeing them make friends and seeing them have new ideas and seeing them being in the space and making some cool stuff is an incredible experience.
Yeah, I'd agree with Josh with being just really rewarding to have a show come together, and it is a lot of work.
It's a lot of emails, a lot of talking, a lot of meetings, like things you've done, and you make a show. It's kind of crazy.
It is. I'm agreeing with everything Josh and John have said already. It's definitely something you learn a lot from, about just sort of managing a bunch of different things, because you're not the person who has to do everything. You're the person who has to make sure everything gets done. So you kind of have to figure out how to delegate tasks and how to know, okay, I will step in and help out with this task at this point, or no, it's okay, I can leave them to do it themselves. So you're sort of the person managing the crew and making sure everything's on track and dealing with issues if they arise. And we always have 2 producers, so one from exec and one not. So you always have another producer to help, sort things out. And always, even if you're not on the exec, if you're the other producer, you can always bring things to the exec if you need help. The amount of questions Kieran and the entire exec got from me when I was producing the show, a lot.
I
But
mean that to say at least 2.
yes,
At least 2 producers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So for context, this year we, for Mongoose, we had three producers, so it was co-producers instead of with the usual structure of two producers and a production manager.
In the past, I think prior to last year, it used to be 2 producers from exec who would do all 4 shows, and there used to be only 6 people. So you'd be overlapping, and you'd be working on one show, and then the other one starts up in planning, and you kind of have to be in between 2, and we realized that's too much burnout. And plus, if you want to learn how to produce, but you don't want to be an exec member just yet, we wanted to have that opportunity where you guys could do that too. We understand that numbers can be quite low because it seems quite daunting, but I guess the best way to put it would be admin, looking at all the paperwork and just learning about the ins and outs of how a show works. You do in a way have a final say to things that may come from your cast, your crew, your director, whatever it may be, because you're looking at the bigger picture of the show as a whole. And you have to manage the budget and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think I enjoy producing shows. As the president this year, I didn't produce one because that allowed me to go between all the other shows if they needed any support, and then that way I didn't feel like I was putting anyone behind. But there's nothing stopping the president from producing a show if they chose to apply for it. Anyone else want to add anything?
I guess just to add on Felix thing about doing sort of, you're not doing everything, but you're making sure everything gets done. One of the things is you learn what you're good at and you learn what you're not so good at sometimes. And it's really valuable being in that space because you get to do a bit of everything. You kind of feel like, okay, this is something that I'm really interested in. And like, for example, everyone has a different producing style. So you might find out, okay, I actually do enjoy the admin task and I enjoy being behind the scenes. Or you might find out, okay, I actually really enjoy the people aspect of it, working with teams and having meetings and making sure everything's going to plan and talking with all sorts of different people, helping solving problems, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
How does being on exec affect your involvement in shows? So can you submit to direct, audition, or sign up for crew?
Just one of the first questions I had was, does being on exec mean you can't be in a show? And it doesn't. You can definitely still audition for shows and do crew roles. I've done both this year. Auditioned, ended up not doing the show for other reasons. But yeah, no, you definitely can still be involved in shows from a cast or crew perspective. Unless you're the person producing that show, then you can't do any other role if you're the producer because you will probably explode and die.
Unless it's like urgent, like last minute change or whatever it may be that you need to
Yeah, so one of the things with producers is that sometimes there are last minute changes. Sometimes producers will step in to roles.
Like if someone gets sick or something like that.
Or someone decides
Drops out
3 days before show week to be like, I can't do this anymore.
Which does happen.
Which does happen.
Nature of it. The only thing that you can't do is submit to direct. And the reason is because you as an exec choose the play that gets put forward. So there's a bit of a bias if you happen to select the person that's your exec member to do the show.
Over somebody else.
Over somebody else, yeah.
And if nobody submitted anything and an exec member was like, hey, I've got this idea, then I guess we'd have to consider it.
It can be considered, but I mean, so far we haven't had that issue, which is absolutely amazing. But that's the only reason. I mean, how would you feel if you saw that Ophelia was directing a show and you're like, but I submitted, why does she get to choose? Because she probably had a say in it and then it creates that. So we probably wouldn't say that you would be able to direct a show. I think you could submit scripts for Stir Fried because they are anonymous.
That's the only potential exception, is that Stir Fried is the selection process for Stir Fried is completely anonymous in that. So when I produce Stir Fried, someone else from the exec anonymizes all those scripts, and then I pick them purely based on the script. So that is something you can maybe consider.
So to clarify that, are we saying that if you wrote a script and wanted to direct it, you could do it anonymously and have it selected anonymously?
Yeah, because it's anonymous process. Yeah.
What if you wanted to direct but you hadn't submitted a script?
That one I would probably say you would probably be on the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
Because I know I put my name down to direct for Stir Fry, but we had more than enough directors for it. So
But last year you directed something.
Yeah, because there weren't enough directors at the time. So that's kind of how you would play that one. But I guess it's also kind of the same in terms of crew roles. But in a petition, the director has to say. So it's up to them to choose the best person for the job. So yes, it does limit your involvement, but it doesn't remove your entire involvement. How do you decide which exec members produce shows? We battle to the death.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a duel.
Yeah.
With packets of directors.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there isn't. I don't think there is like any rule of who has to
Yeah.
direct what.
It's-
Like for example, I'm pretty sure I volunteered myself to direct to produce Stir Fry this year because I wanted to see what producing Stir Fry was like. And in one of the like earlier meetings, that is one of the early meetings that we have as an exec, is to be like, we're structuring this year's shows and we're allocating, okay, who's producing what? And that can also play into workload and stuff. So what we were talking about before with studying and being on the exec, if you know you have particular, like you're taking a lot of papers this semester, you may choose to produce your show late, like the second semester. So there is flexibility in that.
Yeah. I think the only roles that don't produce shows are marketing manager and programs manager. So I'll speak for the program and talk to marketing. Marketing manager is involved in all the shows. They have to be involved in the planning and pretty much all the marketing. So they have to do a show on top of managing all the other ones. Then it can be quite overwhelming because marketing doesn't stop. It's the social media, it's the posters, it's the programs, it's everything in between, all the events in between as well. It's the same with programs manager. Their job should be solely work on all the workshops and activities that go in between the shows. And if you have a programs manager doing both, it can be quite overwhelming. It's not to say that it shouldn't, it's not possible. It's just recommended that you don't go down that route.
Is that mostly based on past
Yeah,
experiences?
it is.
Finding that somebody, like for example, I think there was a programs manager who produced Stir Fried and it got a bit much doing both at the same time.
Yeah, it did. And also, we had 6 members of the exec up until last year. We introduced the vice president only last year. And that meant that there's one less producing member on the exec. And we thought it made the most sense for the programs manager to drop that one.
And especially in recent years, we've tried to focus more on some social events and some events outside of shows because there are significant number of people who may not necessarily want to do a show straight away, and they want to maybe try some smaller events before committing to a full show. And so we're trying to make our community as accessible as possible.
Other thing I was going to say on that about how do the shows get selected. So I think this year it kind of was what made sense. So Josh was the person on the exec who had produced a show before, and Stir Fried is a bit more complicated because it's a lot of different shows and a lot of different directors, so it made sense for somebody who produced a show before to do it. And I know for me, I couldn't produce Original Bill because of the timing with my drama course clashing, so that ruled that one out for me, and then we sort of, we figured it out based on what made the most sense, pretty much.
Should we open it to any questions that you guys may have before we go to the tablet? Cool.
Or any
I
clarification?
want quite a general question for, I guess, everyone. Sort of just following up on the commitment in terms of time. Kind of a like general ballpark figure of how many hours a week you all reckon you spend doing Stray stuff?
I think it varies depending on the time of year.
It also varies depending on role.
Yeah. So I think if you're producing a show, that tends to increase a little bit more because I think most of it happens over group chats. Physical attendance is quite limited, but your brain is constantly ticking when it comes to working on a show. Like if you were directing a show, you're constantly thinking about it in the back of your mind. I think, we have 1 a week meetings with exec. Those can be long because there's a lot of things to cover. But I think, I don't know, I'd probably say like 6 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. It is quite hard to quantify because like when I was producing a show, I was probably doing at least one thing every day, especially in the lead up to it. At the very start when you produce and at the very end just before the show is when it's most busy. But then as soon as my show was finished, I was like, oh, I've got like nothing to do for Stray. What's going on? What have I got to do? Someone give me something to do. So yeah, it really varies depending on what you're doing at that point in time. But I would say Elliot could probably have a different answer to that.
Well, the meetings are usually a couple of hours, so
And then, I'd probably say like 6 to 8 hours a week. But again, it is relative to the time of year and like how many posts that we need to put up. And sometimes I'll just work on a post like randomly during the day. So it might be like 20 minutes at a time.
For treasurer, it's like
Some weeks of the year may have a bit more because most of the funding and stuff is due at the start of the year, and then once that's all sorted out of the way, it's more just making sure all the finances are happening. I probably spend. Usually what I do is after the exec meeting, I'll spend an hour-ish doing sort of the stuff that we're like, okay, from the exec meeting, this is the stuff that needs to do. I would say probably like 6-7 hours a week, and it's very flexible because the only really thing that you need to do that has a time limit is being at the meeting, right? And that's the purpose of the meeting, is to keep that sort of structure.
And we do sometimes use meetings to get stuff done as well.
Yeah.
I'd say 5-6 hours,
including the exec meeting and just general tasks you get, like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. During the exec meeting, you assign something, and then that'll just take an hour or two to get done throughout the week, and then it's basically the commitment.
It's 2 small questions because I don't know that I fully read all the precursor stuff. So as I gather, all the meetings seem to be on a Tuesday.
It's about our availability this year.
Yeah, it depends on it. Like that would be one thing at the start of the year as well. Is when we get the exec. Okay, when are we meeting? That's one of the first things we figure out.
Okay, and
it just happened that 3 years in a row was Tuesday.
Yeah, for some reason. Nobody does anything.
We started out on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And as uni began, we
changed. So it's up to your availability. Any other questions?
Because it may just be like ridiculously stupid, but you talk a lot about being an exec and co-producing. Is that by implication you can't be anything else? Does it only open you, because you talk about the exceptions being that you can potentially submit or direct for stir fry, but like, for example, no other crew roles.
No,
you can
as long as it's not the show that you're producing, you can do any of the other shows.
Yeah, so like to put it into context for this year, I couldn't have said I wanted to be another crew member for Low Pay, Don't Pay. I ended up technically being hair and makeup because we didn't have anyone.
Whole other story.
Did not actually do hair and makeup.
Hey.
But then because Josh was producing Stir Fry, I was okay to sign up to be stage manager for that because it wasn't the show that I was producing.
Yep. And Ophelia went through the form.
Yeah.
She applied for it as well.
Yeah, I didn't just be like, hey, make me stage manager. I went through the form and and then also I auditioned for classical as well. So, going through all the audition process and all that sort of stuff.
Jack auditioned for stuff as well.
Yeah,
Jack auditioned.
Jack auditioned
For Stir Fry. Yeah. I put my name down to direct for Stir Fry. I think the only difference is like I sound operated for Mongoose, but that was out of urgency as well. So it doesn't limit you at all in terms of crew roles. I think, and neither does it limit you in acting as long as it's not your show. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Cool.
Any other questions before we go to the Padlet?
And no question is silly, by the way.
Have any of you done a semester with 5 pages and also while you were on exec?
Ooh.
And it was
It was no fun, but I did it. For
Yeah.
context, last year, What did I do? I was treasurer, I was marketing manager. Both, and I nearly
Not
did 5
intentionally,
papers.
because somebody you
Yeah.
didn't go for both roles and get both roles
Yeah.
at the AGM. But, yeah.
So the last year the marketing manager had to resign, about 2/3 of the way through the year, and we had like all the other exec were producing a show, so I had stepped into marketing manager while being treasurer and while doing 4.5 papers, because I had a weird situation. One of my papers was like, it's the science scholars, which was like a 10-point paper or something. So it was like 4.5 papers. And I mean, I didn't get the best grades, but I got through. So like that's
on
probably
you prioritizing, not your grades,
yeah.
right?
And
Not to
that,
drop you
and
in
also
it.
because I was essentially doing 2 exec member roles instead of 1. So yeah.
Whereas I haven't done 5 papers at once, but I've definitely put my foot down and gone, no, I have assignments due. I'm sorry, I can't do anything right now. I'm prioritizing my uni stuff.
So you do have the right to do that. Just addressing Skippy's comment there. Producing should be the only show role. Don't combine it with acting, directing, etc.
Yeah.
Try not to make. Yeah, totally agree. If you are producing your show, don't get involved in the other elements of it. If it's a show that you are not producing, then it's still allowed.
Yep.
We've had exec members in the past act in some of the shows that we've done, so they went through the same process as everybody else.
Okay, Padlet.
Do you want to read it? I can't see that.
I can't see it either. Can Ophelia bring it up?
Why
on-
can some roles co-produce a show and others cannot?
Have we
Okay,
covered
so we've kind of
we answered that question.
Yeah. What if you haven't really had an experience with the behind the scenes of a production? Can you learn on the job?
Can I zoom in?
That's
yes.
kind of our whole thing.
I mean, last year I produced for the first time in Much Ado, and I think that was yeah. I think part of our reform with the past couple of years, bringing in a co-producer from outside the exec, is to try and encourage people who haven't done more of the behind the scenes stuff to try it out. And part of the role of the exec as well is to be there to support that whoever's producing a show, right? Especially with if you have people who are experienced like Kewan, who's produced shows before. Part of our presence is to be there to answer questions and go, when you don't know, I have no idea what I'm doing, producing, am I on the right track? That's where we can sort of support and be like, yes, you're doing a good job, or this is what you should be careful of and stuff. And that's part of what the Stray Advisory Panel is as well.
I think tell us to answer this question.
Well, that is the point of Stray.
Yeah.
You go out into the other theatre group or something, it can be really hard to break into it. Here's, if you have no experience, we want to give you that experience so you can go elsewhere and learn and build on that. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to answer?
I can kind of speak on that, and John probably can as well. Both of us, so I produced Contemporary Build with somebody with my co-producer had never produced a show, my director had never directed a show, my stage manager was like, hey, are you going to explain to me what to do? And I was like, yeah. And my set and props person had never really done that before. My costume designer had never designed for a show. Lily.
Oh, right.
She was a fashion student, but she never actually designed for a show. And so on and so forth. So it's very much, which I mean has its own challenges, but that's kind of what our whole thing is that you don't have to have experience. And even the person in exec, like, because I did not know what I was doing. We have a great checklist which I reorganized and but just to keep me on track of what I'm supposed to be doing and asking the exec for help and talking to people who have done stuff before. And you kind of have to know that you are going to make mistakes and that's okay and you will learn. And it's not the end of the world because at the end of the day it's uni community theatre. So,
And
I can't believe I just said that.
Everybody heard it.
On the note of a big checklist, can there be like a fun guide made for producing a show, like Stray's producing guide or producing for dummies?
I wouldn't say fun guide. This is a guide. We have done producing workshop at the beginning of the year, where we've got some slides and stuff that kind of outline and explain that. So we could always make that accessible to people who would like it.
And we've got a very long spreadsheet checklist,
Yep.
which is now makes sense because I have re-color coded it to make sense. And
If you couldn't tell, Ophelia
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, can I just say that you're highly criticizing the person who made that previous document?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Improving it.
And all I'm saying is it wasn't me who made it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
This is also one thing that we have been trying to work on in particular this year is having that,
Resources.
putting those sort of resources and documentation down for future exec and future crew as well, because we know that coming in new can be quite daunting, and having even just something there will be really helpful for people coming in, and also just having a contact point potentially for them to someone for them to contact as part of the Stray Advisory Panel's role. Hello. Shave. And so, for example, like at the end of this year, because when I came in, I don't think there was anything treasury related documentation.
No.
So at the end of this year, I'm obviously I'm making a budget document. I'm also going to make a treasurer's guide for just everything, all the kind of things that the next treasurer should be aware of, and that's the sort of thing that we're working on this year.
I'm in the process of making a handbook for all exec members, so that's hopefully something we can pass down. Next question on the Padlet.
If the 2023 exec team had to fight WWE style, who would win?
Oh, Josh.
Wait, why?
You do all the props.
For fun.
Yeah.
I do push it. It's like get the blood. I'm not that sort of. Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
I would fall to the ground before it even started, so definitely Josh.
Okay.
Alright.
I feel like Jack could have it. He's a swimming coach. Aren't you a swimming coach? I feel like you'd have a pretty good chance.
Is the wrestle fight
Yeah.
in the water or is it?
I played water polo, so that might be
Okay, so it seems like it's between the two of them.
Yeah. Alright, arm wrestle, let's go.
Oh, wrestle, so I don't fight.
Are there any other
Jack.
questions on the...
Yeah, this is Jack, our programs manager. I literally just said what Ophelia said, but louder, sorry.
Are there any other questions on the Padlet, or is that...
Is that the last one? I think that's what we just go and you scroll. Because it looks like
Going
it's
much
one.
better, but
I don't think there's anything more.
that's because it's so zoomed in.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, that was the last one.
Alright.
Awesome. Okay, if you have any questions about general exec stuff at any point, please feel free to ask. We're just going to go into the section where we'll just talk about each role. And we've got a couple of those questions prepared, but again, if you have any questions, either raise your hand or add it to the Padlet. And we'll go in the order that is on the screen.
Including clarification on anything we say, because at this point, we're quite familiar with how things work and terminology and that sort of thing. So even if it sounds like a dumb question, do ask.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, so Hewitt, you're first.
Okay.
I have some questions for you about the role of the president. Okay, so does the president have final say on decisions?
No.
That was a quick answer.
Cool, thank you.
No, I think the president has a final say on the next step. So if there is a disagreement or conflict or whatever it might be, the president would have a say on what is going to happen next to make sure we all come to an agreement. So I wouldn't say, right, you don't like that, too bad, we're doing this anyway, and make anyone feel unhappy.
Yeah.
It always goes back. It means the process goes a little bit longer, but it just makes sure that everyone feels heard and supported. So no, they don't have the final say on decisions, you can't exert power, but you can say, right, we've talked about this for too long, we need to move on, and we need to address the other points.
Cool.
Amazing.
Do you need to have been an exec member before to run for president?
No, you don't need to be an exec member before to run for president. You just, I would highly recommend you have knowledge of what Stray is. Coming from someone who signed up onto the exec with no knowledge of Stray in my first year, you learn a lot, and that can be quite daunting, but if you are a Stray member, it does help a lot. So if you have not been part of Stray, but you want to try to be an exec member anyway, like what I did, I'm doing the reverse Stray experience. Don't go for president, is my suggestion. But you don't need to be an exec member to be president now.
Where are we? Oh yes, what's the most difficult thing about the role?
It's hard to, it can be really difficult having to have those difficult conversations with people. So if something is not working the way that it should, we're not following deadlines or our own things, having to follow up or have those difficult conversations with either the team or someone who has been impacted by one of the shows or whatever it might be, it can be quite a challenging thing to have those, serious, hard conversations. They're never really fun to do, but as the president, it does fall on you to do that. So I would say talking about things that you don't necessarily want to talk about, but it's your role to talk about it. And I think another difficult thing seems to be like trying to make sure everyone feels heard in the room. Because if you're a theatre group exec, you've got dominant personalities all across, right? And if you happen to have one that is not dominant, then they can disappear completely. Yeah. So it's always trying to make sure that everybody is heard. So when you're chairing a meeting, always reminding, what are your thoughts? How do you see it? Because sometimes someone offers something completely different. And also being open. So even as a president, you have a vision and you want to achieve it, other people have different ways to do that too. So always be open to it. Don't be stubborn to your own ideas. Listen to everybody else and see the best way to go about it. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
And finally, why did you run for president?
I spent this is my third year on exec, and I spent 2 years in the logistics manager role, and after seeing how things were going with Stray, I was like, I have a vision, it's a little bit different, but I want to introduce something new. And that was bringing a bit more community back into a space that was focused on becoming professional. It achieved that to a degree, and now it needed to flip into a bit more of a community space. So I felt like when I ran for president, I felt like that was my goal that I wanted to achieve on how I wanted to progress the group. So I felt like sitting in the logistics manager role for a third year wouldn't allow me to drive it as much as I could if I were president. So that's why I ran for the role. And was lucky to get it. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Q about
Is anyone thinking of becoming president?
What?
We can ask questions from this panel here. Anyone could become president. Yeah? Oh no.
It's actually a decent one. Yeah. If you go back in time, what's one thing you do different as president?
Oh, that's a good one.
I had a 20-minute drive thinking about that.
I think I would have liked to have created, this sounds so good. I wanted to create a lot more documentation earlier. I think that's the biggest thing. Is that
I'm going to take back my question.
No, I think that would probably be the biggest thing, is just trying to make sure that there's enough to leave to the group. And then I know it can be really, when you're in a space for 3 years, like Ophelia said earlier, you have so much of the knowledge that seems that when people are learning, it just, there's always that disconnect. So I think I would have liked to have created more documentation early, put myself in that mindset so it benefited everyone, because I feel like that's where miscommunication could have happened, and it's not fair on everyone else. So I think that's what I would have done differently. If that answers your question?
You lost me at documentation.
Yeah. Paperwork.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a really boring answer. If you have any questions at any point, just feel free to ask. Or put it into the Padlet. We'll move into the vice president questions. That's you. How would you define the vice president role?
I kind of said this at the start, but sort of overseeing a lot of different things that happen. I definitely struggled at the start of the year because I was like, am I doing the right things? Because there's not necessarily a super specific set of tasks that the vice president does. Like, marketing manager is doing the marketing. That's quite obvious. Treasurer is looking after the money and that sort of thing. But it's sort of, I've come to figure out that it is more sort of keeping an eye on everything. And I've asked a lot of questions, both because I wasn't sure what was going on and wanted to figure out, how things work. I've never been on an exec before. I didn't know what anything meant. I didn't know what nominating or seconding in an AGM or I don't know what any of that meant. But even just asking lots of questions, but also questions, why are we doing it this way? Is that the best way we can be doing things? Is there something that's happened in the past that means that that's the best way we should do things? Okay, sure, let's take that on and you know, consider, you know, what to do with that information, and just sort of generally keeping an eye on, you know, what were our goals for this year? Are we following through with them, and that sort of thing. And yeah.
You also held a couple of portfolios as
Yes,
well.
I did, which both of which this year were sort of headed. So I've been managing / producing Stray Thoughts, which has a new host Hunter this year, which meant that we sort of took our time getting into that one, and same with the advisory panel, which was a brand new thing to be set up this year. So both of those things I wasn't exactly doing from the beginning of the year, but you know, sort of going into them. So advisory panel, I was just the sort of liaison between them and the exec. So if we had something we wanted to take to them, I would send it, and we ended up just setting up a group chat with them. So I would send it there, and then I would sort of look at their responses and take it back to the exec. And then Stray Thoughts has just been sort of, you know, talking to Hunter about what the plans are, and being like, hey, so we're going to do an episode, what are your ideas? And then, yeah, pretty much just sort of managing that sort of a thing. Yeah.
What qualities do you think are needed to make a good vice president?
I think listening and sort of remembering a good quality, which is not, I'm not always the best at, but just sort of keeping an eye on, like, going back to that whole big picture thing, you know, what is actually the goal here? So, because we can get caught up in the details, and the details are really important, but just sort of remembering what the point is at any given time. You know, like if we're discussing a small thing and we can't come to a conclusion, maybe it's you're the person who steps back and goes, hang on, why are we doing this in the first place? Yeah, I don't know, just I think, you know, being keen to keep things moving and come up with new ideas and make it a happy working environment and make good stuff happen for Stray. Yeah. Yeah.
I just also like add to that you also support the president a lot in terms of decision making as well, or planning before we take it to the rest of the exec, so we have an idea that's going forward. So I would say supporting that, and then also the portfolios that you hold, the portfolios that I hold, they can be interchangeable between president.
Which is why they're not on the role descriptions, because they're sort of schools program, Stray Thoughts, advisory panel thing.
Can't think off the top of my head.
So they're sort of interchangeable. So, you know, if somebody's like, I don't know anything about school, and the other person's like, oh, I know a little more about that. Nothing about school, no education, head empty. Well, yeah.
Does being vice president suggest that you should run for president the year after?
I don't think necessarily. I think, see, this year is the first year there's been a vice president, and I'm sure next year's vice president at this point in time will probably have a lot more solid answers than me on most of these questions, because the role will possibly be a little better established. But no, not at all. I think there's no obligation or expectation for that sort of process, because it's not like you're working in some corporation and you're working your way up the food chain or anything like that. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if it's what you want to do next because you've worked closely with the president and you think, yeah, I think that's something I would like to go for next, then yeah, but you also absolutely don't have to. So.
I think we introduced the vice president role last year, well, for this year, because the president's role can be quite a lonely one when you're making some of those decisions. And sometimes you need someone to bounce back on some of those ideas and see, does it actually make sense, does it work? So I would feel like Ophelia has achieved that with me and trying to keep me in check and kind of find a balance. Why did you run for vice president?
Because you said to me last year, hey, you should be on exec. There were a few things, and I was like, I don't know, I just put my name down for a couple of things, and I was like, hey, this one looks interesting, and I think mostly it was almost the vagueness that was kind of appealing, is that I could have sort of the more general overview of the exec and the club and that sort of thing. And I definitely found myself thinking, hey, yeah, I am keen to be on exec because having been involved from a performance point of view in Stray for the last 2 years prior to this year, I definitely, noticed a lot of things, and I was thinking, I think Stray could do this better, or I think this thing that they did was not great, and I would like to, make my opinion on that known, or I think it would be really great if we could head in this direction. And I felt like, I didn't think I could make it better, but I thought I could, bring some thoughts to the table. So, yeah.
And if I just can add, I think one thing that you do really well as like vice president is sort of sometimes take a step back and look at the big picture and be like, why are we doing this? Or question like, because a lot of the time, Stray being quite an old club in a sense, there is a lot of things that are just like, it's just always been done this way, or it's like, it's just this is what we do. And one thing that you do very well is like, wait, why are we do? What is the reasoning behind this? And having that sort of big picture, and again, sort of working with the president, so it doesn't just become a president's like thing. This is what we've done, so we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I've done a lot of, okay, but why are we doing that? Because I've known nothing and got an answer, and sometimes agreed with the answer and sometimes disagreed with the answer and suggested a new way of doing things.
And sometimes that's why things change and improve. It's just like, this is the way we've done it, but that doesn't necessarily mean we always have to do this.
And that goes for everyone on exec, especially, coming into exec having never done it before is definitely a way to make a lot of different things happen, because people who have been there in the past will go, well, this happened last year, so that's why we're doing it this way. You go, okay, sure, but is that the best way? And oh, I see why. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's also why your feedback forms really help to hear what you guys think. So when you've done a show, hopefully there's been a feedback form. We do read them. It helps us restructure and think forward. So hopefully they've all been
I put
sent
mine out
out.
2 days ago.
Okay, so that's something I probably should have known about. Thank you.
Whoops.
Hey, I still did it.
But when they do come out, we do like to read them so that we can actually see what do we need to reflect on. Last question for Ophelia before we move on. How many times have you wanted to kill me throughout?
Not that often. Okay, so you'll say okay, here's how it goes. You'll say a thing and I'll be like, what? And then you explain it and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So like I wanted to like hello. I wanted to like you didn't see the Instagram story?
I did, and I
It was too fast.
Yeah.
Welcome. You tried. Yeah. So. Yeah, so you've just come to Q and asking me how many times I wanted to kill him this year, so welcome. The answer was not as much as other people.
Whoa.
No names need to be named. Anyway, thank you
It
for
will be after this.
No, you know who.
Alright.
Moving on. I don't want to kill anyone.
Right, are there any questions for the Vice President either on the Padlet or open to anyone considering the role here? Or just out of curiosity?
Curious.
How stressed were you?
My base default level is stress. So you know how people have like resting bitch face? I have resting stress face. So relative to actual levels of stress, Ben is giving me a look.
Yep.
The stage manager for the show I produce.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I get very stressed, and there have been moments where things that had to be dealt with were quite stressful. Things were going wrong, things were possibly not going to go right at all, and but at the end of the day, everything I've done this year, nothing has actually ended in disaster. It got sorted, and I mean, hindsight is not something you can work with going into things, but my stress levels, for anyone who has had to work with me this year, probably aren't actually a good indicator of how stressed one should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You said a lot of the part that attracted you to the job was the vagueness of it. Do you think because it's now, had a year to develop and be a role, that some of that vagueness is going to be shifted into a more defined role as the role continues to exist? Or do you reckon that it's kind of just going to be adaptive to whatever the president's, it's straps like helping out with all that jazz. So you reckon the vagueness will still stay there, or that's going to get more defined?
I think with the role, it can be sort of what the person makes it. So I think next year's vice president might know, I want to do this. This is where I want to stand on things, and this is how I want to contribute, which is up to them. Or they might go, you know what, I want to see how I fit into things. And I think it's sort of being obviously we've got those 3 portfolios that sort of bounce between president and vice president. But I think other than those, that sort of, working with the president to look at the overall picture is something that will be sort of maintained. But I think precisely what it is that the vice president does regularly could change. So, like this year, because of the sort of person I am, I decided I want to look after our Google Calendar. I will probably continue to do that next year unless there's somebody to fight me on it. Because I wanted to colour code everything and make it look good rather than just Stray 2020 whatever. So that was something that I decided I wanted to do, but that doesn't mean it has to be the vice president's job next year. So I think in terms of vagueness, it's sort of the fact that the role is more of a overarching view on things means that it's always going to be somewhat vague what their precise tasks in a week are.
I think we have meetings before our
An exec meeting just to make sure we're on the same page, and we've done a lot of planning things in the beginning of the year as well.
So we don't argue with each other
Yeah.
in the middle of the meeting and go,
exactly.
no.
Yeah, your president and your vice president both need to be on the same page about things, and making sure that when we go into the exec meeting that we're sharing the same bit of information. So we have a meeting beforehand just to make sure we touch base, see everything's going the way it should. But in that time, it talks about what things do you want to bring to the table, what do you want to try, what do you want to attempt. This year has been a big year of change for Stray. So a lot of those things, 3 out of those portfolios are new, right?
I think
All
as
3
well,
are new.
yeah.
So that's
No,
definitely
Stray isn't new, but it's the
new
way
growth,
it's been managed.
rebranding.
Yeah.
That's where that can grow.
I think as well, those pre-meetings have mostly been Q and going, so I think we should do this, and me going, why? And him explaining and me going, okay, but, and then us coming to a conclusion that we're both happy with to take it to the rest of the exec on things. Not always, but only if there's an issue or a new thing to sort out.
Yep. And then if we move forward, the vice president can say, I want to do this, the president can say why, then go back.
Additionally, I don't actually know how well I've managed to do this, but I think we decided that I would chair the meetings in the second half of the year, just to sort of have more of a, not necessarily a handoff, but more of a experience with a couple of different things. And any other questions? Anything on the pad?
Excellent.
Amazing.
We'll move over to the secretary.
How are we doing on time?
We need to go a lot faster than what we've been doing.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
So
I can help with that.
Am I?
Yep.
Am I
Asking this way or this way?
Yeah,
I'm asking this way? Okay. Thank you. So, secretary, what does looking after the emails actually mean? So looking after the emails is really just seeing them as they come in and giving them a label. So for all the mongoose related emails, I gave them a mongoose, zip mongoose, and a special color in 2023. And there's lots of folders, not lots, but there's folders and emails go into there's folders for Gmail is weird. They don't do folders properly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it puts a label on
Yeah, so there's labels in folders, and then the labels don't do that.
Yeah.
Clearly, that was a very traumatic
Yeah.
question to
I thought you were painting it out.
Normal email things you can email in folder, but Gmail do not do folder email. You label the emails.
Yeah.
You label the emails with what the
And
show
also,
is, so
sometimes like let the
yeah. And then
Hey, you've got
if it's
an email.
for, depending on what it's for, so say it's there's a bill to pay for Rebel, I tell Ophelia and tell Josh, give them money.
Which has saved my ass multiple times because I wouldn't have seen that email for like another 3 days if John hadn't told me.
Moving like promotional material to like the not spam one, but the promo folder, so it kind of clears the inbox up, so we can easier navigate it.
Yep. Our inbox gets quite full.
It does get quite full. But yeah.
Side question from that. Does that mean you have to have notifications for the Stray email on all the time?
Yes, I do, but I mean, if you check it like every, I mean, you can check it every day kind of thing, and just like go to the software at the end of the day and let people a message. It doesn't have to have notifications on necessarily.
But you didn't have it on your phone, no?
I didn't have it on my phone until like halfway through the year.
Oh wow.
You still do a good job. So.
So we have our Stray website,
Yes.
and it's your role to manage that website. How do you do that?
So I took over looking after the website about halfway through the year after our mid-year review, and that just basically is posting the events. So once we get all the details for like the events, we use Wix. I'm just gonna put that out there first. And so, like once you get all the details for the events, we put the event up, date, time, location, the little blurb that Alec usually writes up from. I grab it from the Instagram usually. Also use
Sharing
my,
is caring.
I use my brain as well sometimes. Do a bit of additions to it. Yeah. So that's events, and then the website's got individual pages for each of the bills as well as the front page. So on that landing page, I'd update what's on. So like Mongoose, Lope Don't Pay, Resistible Rise of Artillery, and Stir Fried. So just on the front page as well as the individual bill pages. So I put up the poster as it comes through, the trailer as it comes through, maybe cast photos if we get those. Yeah.
What's
That's supposed to mean they're all on the drive.
when we get those. Is that better, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so update the pages. And I'm probably going to do a
General refresh at the end of the year because it's 2023 bills, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So at exec meetings, we have to take minutes. It's constitutional. We have to follow constitution for it. How detailed do those minutes need to be?
So I write down everything everyone says basically. So that's not the best way. There's better ways of doing it basically, but they don't have to be that detailed as long as people get an understanding of what happened in the meetings. Like Kewan said this, and then Josh said this kind of thing. Yeah, so it's actually too detailed.
Just to quickly check, everyone here knows what minutes mean.
Yeah. So you have an agenda, which is the breakdown of what's going to happen in the meeting. So usually before that meeting, we have the template up ready, and you can just add in the things that you want to talk about. And the minutes is recording the information that is discussed about said agenda topic. So all the key things that need to be noted from that meeting when discussing that specific topic. So I guess it's just recording the information discussed.
Yep. So we missed a meeting, we need to go back and find it later.
Yeah. And why did you run for secretary?
I saw there was an open spot on the exec, and I really wanted to like be a part of it and help out and just really support everyone. And I thought there was a good opportunity to do so. Yeah.
Do we have any questions on the secretary role? Or any other questions that may have come up throughout the rest of this night?
On the role of secretary, so apart from like emails, what would a normal like week's worth of work look like? When you're not producing.
go to exec meeting. Take, I don't know, just take 10 minutes.
Email.
So you take minutes at the meeting.
Oh, did you talk about the newsletter?
Oh yeah, so
No, I'm sorry.
That's a
When
good
you asked
point.
that question, I just remember John messaging at 2 a.m. Hey guys, I've done the 2 newsletter. So how does it look? What?
That's not a weekly thing, but
No.
it's a monthly.
yeah, so that's once every 4 weeks. So on the fourth Tuesday of every
month, we send out a newsletter on what's on and what's happened kind of thing for the month. And that's a shared thing with the marketing manager, where we just go over what's happened and what's happening. That usually takes like an hour or two together kind of thing.
So a week in the secretary role?
We can secretary role. It's really exec meeting, take the minutes, do any updates if there's any updates for the bills, so like marketing materials coming out, that kind of thing, so just staying on top of that.
On the website?
On the website, yeah. And then putting the events, if there are events to market on the website, yeah.
And then also make the new minutes document for the
Yeah, so make the new minutes document as well. So it's just copy and paste the previous minutes for next week.
And then on top of that, as just as an exec member, we discussed all possible different things over the chat about like a conflict resolution, or we want to do this event, what do you think? And then everyone just says their opinion. So on top of the secretary role, those sorts of things will into. Yeah, that's everyone. Okay. Cool. Any other questions for the secretary? No? Would you like to ask Josh?
Sure. Okay, Josh.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. First of all, do you need to be good at maths to be the treasurer?
In the spirit of keeping this short, no, there is a calculator.
Yep.
No, really, it's maths is sort of, you don't need to be like good at maths to do it. If you just see numbers and your head swims, and maybe not, but like you don't need to be proficient. There are spreadsheets, there are calculators. That's not an essential skill. As long as you have a general sense of like, I don't hate this with like every fibre of my being, that's fine. Because there are people who just hate math with every fibre of their being. So I'm like, I understand, but you don't need any level of proficiency.
Yeah, that's okay. I was pointing at myself. Okay. What is the workload like of a treasurer?
The work, I think, for treasurer is a bit different from the other extent in that it's a bit more imbalanced throughout the year, because the majority of like funding stuff and a lot of the treasurer's planning stages are early in the year. So getting all the funds, distributing those, even looking at securing all those venues and looking at all the sort of yearly budget and spreading that out, making sure that it'll coherent and looks and becomes feasible. And then later in the year, once all that's sort of done, you've got all the funds, or hopefully you get all the funds that you asked for, then it's just about maintaining that and keeping records and stuff. So it is usually a bit more work at the start and a bit less work towards the end of the year.
That's why you want people to send in their reimbursements, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, usually around shows is where treasurer can also get a bit busier, because obviously you're processing all the reimbursements and all the financial sides going through a show, and making sure shows stay on budget, stuff like that. But yeah, generally it's not a fairly chill role compared to some of the other ones.
What is the most difficult thing about the role?
Funding applications.
Yeah, I mean, funding applications are always a pain, because the uni loves us and they're amazing and they give us all so much money. No, they don't.
We were legally allowed to have to send first part.
The other thing that I found surprisingly difficult was kind of making sure you have a justification for a lot of things, in the sense that everything is going to be a decision. In terms of, are we going to invest in this? Are we going to spend money on this? Can we justify spending money on that? And a lot of times you want to say yes because you want either this event to happen, or you want someone wants three doors and 8 boats on stage. Sorry, that was not I was just it's just a
the camera can't see you.
Yeah, and sometimes you want that to happen, but realistically, it's like that's not going to be feasible. How do we figure out an alternative that's sort of the best compromise between not trying to not limit someone's creativity or someone's vision, but also making it feasible.
Why did you run for treasurer?
I like spreadsheets. That I've said this many times, but like genuinely, when I came in, I was like, I want to be on exec. I want to be involved. What are my strengths? And I'm like, I like spreadsheets. I am okay with numbers. This seems like the makes the most sense. And, yeah, and it turned out really well because spreadsheets are great. Yeah.
Any questions from the room about treasurer?
Is it safe to say it's usually the one that is not looked forward to when you're applying for an arts-based exec team?
Yeah, I think probably because I think most people who are interested in running a theatre company are.
So if you were to say one thing to motivate people to say yes, you're artsy and yes, we're a theatre company and you would like to do more other things, but treasury is still cool?
I think two things is that one, you quickly realize how important a treasurer is because everything needs money, right? And so if you do a good job, you make sure everything runs smoothly and everyone can, or as many people can get what they want as they can. And the other thing is, it's always good to have money skills, right? Managing a budget for a show and getting those, like learning how that sort of works can also help in you know managing other things, and it can both be a personal skill and a transferable skill to whatever thing you decide to do in the future, even if it's arts related, because we all know how tight the funding is for arts, right? And so if you do want to do something, that having that knowledge and having that awareness is also really important, and can be really valuable for all sorts of projects going forward.
If you don't know, if you're like, this is so in over my head, I've got no idea how to write a funding application, how am I supposed to do that? I may have sneakily snuck some slides from my production management class about writing funding applications into our drive. So
and this is something that I'm working on a lot as well, is trying to put some documentation down for that. Because when I came into, as I said, I came in with that, I like spreadsheets, and I did not realize you need to do quite a bit of writing for treasury. So that did take me by surprise a little bit, and so that's something we're working on.
Yeah, I think one thing just to note is that throughout the year, because we can openly say, and you'll find out in the AGM, we struggled with funding this year. So there are a lot of other clubs and whatnot. So Josh, as the treasurer, communicated with the group that does organize funding for clubs, student groups, and built a relationship, had those conversations about why and how that works. So that ended up falling under his role, but was not actually delegated to you under your role. So it kind of just fell into place that way. But in terms of funding and stuff, Josh went and had that conversation with those people. So it's also building relationships as well. Cool.
Any other questions?
More of an idle question, probably a bit irrelevant to the thing. I am wondering if there is going to be a potential improvement in the formatting of the reimbursement form.
Is it not that good?
Well, because the way that it was designed when I originally had to use it for Arturo is that it expects an explicit amount of minimum things. You're essentially leaving all these blank fields. Plus, you've got, is there any potential issue with it being a Google form, or is that just you generally prefer things Google based, or is it?
I mean, I feel like Google Forms would be the easiest way we could go about it because it's just a link. I've always said if you want to just email to the Stray inbox, you can also do that. But I can also look into making it more user friendly.
But you are more than welcome to find a new system too.
Like I say, Josh is only the treasurer until November 9th. So if anyone else has suggestions, you don't have to go, I'm going to be treasurer just to fix this. You can.
No. But also, you are welcome if you like. This is stuff you can just email us about. I don't like the reimbursement form. It's too many boxes. And look, I don't know what's wrong until you tell me. So I'm not like this is the best reimbursement. I don't care. If you and I don't care in that
great, thanks, Josh.
I don't care in the sense that I'm not invested in the format of the reimbursement.
It does its job.
Yeah, it does. I want it to do its job, and if you feel like there's a better way it can do its job, let me know.
I have one last question.
Hi.
If you could do it all over again and you couldn't do treasurer, what would be the other role you would do instead?
Oh.
Just a random fun one I would like to know.
God, no. I did that last year. That was not my forte. Maybe logistics. Because I think logistics is a good balance of trying to figure out, making things work and also having a bit of the strategic and, keeping things running side of things.
Any other questions for our treasurer?
Yes. With roles like treasurer, where you have to contact Auckland Uni and be in contact with them, do you have to be involved with Auckland Uni?
No, because it comes from Stray.
You're involved
Yeah,
with
it comes from
Auckland
Stray.
Uni,
Yeah, it's just talking to the department at the university. I don't think they would check whether you're a student or not. It doesn't really matter.
Sure.
Because also a lot of execs from Auckland Uni are like people who aren't in uni anymore. Like there are a lot of Kieran is a full-time teacher. So yeah, it doesn't matter that much.
Any other questions?
What's your favourite number?
That's my favourite number. 5.
Okay, moving on. Right.
It's just some precision.
Yes, I'll go this way. So, we'll move on to the marketing manager. Hello.
Hi.
We'll start with, I'm sure we'll start with that question. What do you report on in exec meetings as the marketing manager?
So mostly it's actually like producers and the presidents outlining events and shows and me taking note of what needs to be marketed. Or like I might be asked to create something to post, but generally I will report on timeline, so like how I'm tracking with posting things. For example, when trailers need to be made, I'll tell the producer of the show when that needs to be done by, and I'll say that's because I want to post it on this day, so if you could organise your people to film and edit by this date. So it's, I get told things and I would tell people to do things for me as well.
I get told things and I tell people to do things for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tagline. That's a quote.
So, are you in charge of making all the graphics for social media?
Yes and no. So this year we had a show graphic designer. So for each show they would give me templates for Instagram and Facebook, and I put those into Canva and just overlay with text or images. But yes, generally if it's not for a show, I will be making those graphics.
You're going to talk about, I guess it kind of leads into this question. Do you have full control over what's posted on social media and how the show posts its programs, stuff like that?
So in terms of what is posted for events, and I guess I have control over what the graphics look like, but if there's any logistical things like date and time and place, then I have to check that with the relevant people, so say Adam for room bookings, and so that I get that right. And producers and presidents, if there's anything that is needed in the captions or on the slides. Sometimes I will just copy and paste over from a document that has been made and checked by relevant members. So say, for example, the role descriptions, those were in a document on Google Docs, and I just copy and pasted that over to make sure that I got everything right. And sometimes, even though I've been a bit slack on it, I will check with the secretary that like spelling is correct and grammar is correct. In terms of like congratulating the cast and crew, I usually just write those captions without checking with anyone else. So I guess it depends, yeah.
You also have a little bit of different function within our team because you have your own team.
Yeah.
Right, so can you talk a little bit about the marketing team, because that's quite new as well?
Yeah, so earlier this year as marketing manager, I was asked if I wanted to be like the graphic designer as well or the social media manager. So I chose to take on the additional role of social media manager. So I do that as well. And then there's a show graphic designer, like I said. They focus on producing the posters, the programs, the, I guess, blank graphics for Instagram and Facebook. And
Are they an exec member?
no,
So you don't have the same amount of commitment as an exec member?
yeah. And then we also technically have a photographer, but it was just Josh. And then I guess you could say that the other people in my team that I manage would be the people who like film the trailers and edit them, but I don't directly manage them. I guess I speak to them through the producers. But yeah, I keep track of how the show graphic design is going in terms of deadlines and workload. Yeah. And that's just done over Messenger. Like, we don't necessarily have separate meetings. Yeah, unless needed.
Are there quick questions?
Yeah, I do. So if the marketing manager isn't managing social media, what does their workload look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it would be more of like just focused on all of the planning. So part of my role, or that I've taken on personally, is making a content calendar, and also I set goals that I wanted to achieve this year. So it would just be making sure that everyone on the marketing team that's outside of exec are producing content according to those goals. And yeah, if I've created a content calendar, just checking in with everyone and making sure that they're sticking to that timeline. And then I can assume that if I was just the marketing manager, then maybe I would have separate meetings with the marketing team, like on Zoom, because that would be easier to coordinate rather than like messaging everyone individually. Yeah.
Is it just safe to say that your marketing manager element of the role doesn't require you to know how to be like artistic?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's more of a overseeing.
Yeah, part of the role.
Any questions from the floor or our panelists? Thank you. Logistics. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to swap with Josh.
Okay. Oh, does anyone want any snacks?
Yeah. What do you
Can we
want?
throw?
I'm really bad at saying.
The type of
Yeah, we've got
Oh,
too many snacks.
So the only thing you need to know, Josh.
How many engineers does it take to catch this? We've got it 1 to 10.
Doritos?
They toss them.
So the only thing you need to know is, if you want to switch to full view, click here. The bucket's like zero. It will switch to there. If you want to go to the side where the camera's going through, you want to go.
Oh, wait. Why?
Also, at any point, just like come forward and
Yeah.
We don't bite. Nice. Whoa, that was a good catch.
Whoa, that was a good catch. The people on the camera don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, so Sophia just like stuck her arm out, like
We'll give you snacks.
grabbed it.
Alright, so we are going to move into the logistics manager role. So I'll see you when you are ready.
Hello, Adam. What is your role of the logistics manager?
Okay, so my role, a lot of it is booking rooms for rehearsals, events, whatever we've got going on, i.e. also helping to find venues, and then outside of that, it's a lot of kind of looking at a lot of situations, looking at what could go wrong, kind of reporting back on university processes, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Contracts?
Contract as well, yep. Just looking at the contracts, making sure that we have the right clauses in there.
And what do you report on in exec meetings?
So my role doesn't necessarily report weekly. It's like, except for when I'm producing a show, I more give input into what everyone else is reporting on, whether it be the shows that they're producing or programs that are being run.
So, how do the infamous room bookings work?
Oh boy. So how room bookings work at the university is, so there's a part of the university called student groups who basically book rooms for every single university club within the university. So basically, I get in contact with them and then I send them all the information of what kind of rooms we want, and then they book it for us. Unfortunately, this year, obviously there are a lot of university clubs. You've all been to Clubs Expo, so you've seen all the stands. And I think that team is only maybe 2 or 3 people. So what you've got to realise is that yeah, it can take a little bit longer than what you expect. So it's about really being aware of the time frame of getting those room bookings back and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And why did you run for logistics manager?
I think for me it's kind of interesting. So for those of you that don't know, I was a part of Stray for 2 years when I was in my undergraduate, 1 year when I came back to do postgrad, and the past 2 years I've worked at the university, and I thought, why not kind of get a little bit more involved this time? And so I joined last year, midway through the year as the secretary, and I thought like the most logical choice to go after that would be logistics manager, especially given kind of my background, which is, so previously I worked as a personal assistant, and at the moment I'm working as a program coordinator. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Anybody have any questions about logistics?
Yeah. So, well, you hire the venues and stuff, or you organise that. If something goes wrong, in the worst case scenario, are you the first one that gets contacted and you have to deal with it?
So usually it really depends. It wouldn't usually go to me. If something went wrong, it would usually go to the entire exec to try and figure out make a decision of what we would do then.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question on your question? What do you mean? Can you specify in terms of like?
This is something got damaged, for example,
right.
Like a venue.
Yeah. That would come straight to all of us.
Yeah.
But like if it was in a room booking, then yeah, that would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 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 So it really depends on the context. Yeah.
Any other questions?
But did we answer the question? Because if we didn't, then
yeah. So if it's like a show, so for example, if say something stir fried within one spot, that would usually go to the stir fry producer first. Well, obviously it goes through the whole exec because that will come through the email. If it was something with room bookings, that would probably go to logistics manager. If it was something in terms of venue bigger picture, for example, us planning for a venue and we booked a venue and then they come back to us and like, we have to cancel the booking, that will be a whole exec thing. And that actually did happen this year because we were unable to book. we were unable to do shows in Pitt Street for our second semester shows because of election week. Because Stir Fry was originally going to be in Pitt Street, but because it fell during election week, Pitt Street is an election venue, so we had to move to Factory Theatre, and that was a whole exec decision. So we went back to the drawing board. We're like, all right, Pitt Street's not viable anymore. Where can we look? And that's sort of generally an everyone job.
Yeah. Just also add in terms of that too, with venues and stuff. If something gets damaged or whatever happens and it comes to you, you tend to lead the conversation about what we do about it. So it doesn't sit with anybody else. You kind of tend to lead it as a logistics manager to discuss what is the right way to go about it and how can we fix it. Any other questions for our logistics manager? Awesome.
And doesn't look like there's anything on the tablet.
Which is great.
Do you want me to quickly refresh it just in case? Do you want me to refresh it?
Is it just with emailing us every time we get a question?
Is it really emailing us every time we get a question?
Emailing
That's
us every
funny.
time someone put a question on
Yeah.
Can I refresh it? Did you say Josh?
Yeah.
You could. So we'll move over to the programs manager.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hi.
Okay. Sure. So, Jack, what types of events do you do as a programs manager? Is there any specific limit or direction you have to follow?
Sorry.
Other one.
As you see, I'm the biggest brain in the room. Yeah, I mean, well, that's like 2 or 3 different questions in that. Is there a limit? No. It's what you have capacity to do. Well, I mean, there is a cash limit and what you're given to do. But I mean, as I've said to these guys working with Josh this year, he didn't put he didn't make me feel like, oh, I couldn't do this because we don't have the money to do it. He always made me feel like we could do something, which was awesome. Yeah. What type of events can you do as programmers? I mean, you can do anything. It's really up to you. Yeah, can I just see a quick show of hands if you want to do this? Is there anyone in the room that's actually interested in programs managers? It's totally cool if not. Just so I know. No? Okay, cool. Well, what I would say on that then, you should be. I think it's one of the coolest roles on the exec. I think you guys are all great. All your roles are cool. But you can literally do anything. This year I wanted to target the crew roles because last year we struggled to fill crew positions, to my understanding. So this year we tried to do that. I don't know if that was a positive effect. All I know is that we did get crew positions this year, but I don't know if it was because of that. So yeah, that's the direction I went, was looking at those crew positions. Yeah, one thing we didn't do this year that we had done in the past was a reoccurring event. I just couldn't commit to that. I do full-time work, and unfortunately my full-time work is afternoons, evenings, and weekends, which is a direct clash with a uni club. Yet I still did it. But yeah, I just couldn't commit to a regular meeting, regular event. Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. If you could make changes to the role, what would they be?
I think the biggest one, I don't know if it would be the right way to go, I think we'd make it a team. I don't know what that would look like, I don't know if it would work, but I think having a group of people focused at organising events for the exec, whether that was someone else in the, like the vice president, maybe that was part of their role, I don't know. But I think having a second or third person might double the results and outcomes. Even if they weren't actually working together on events, but this person does different aspects. So like this year we broke it into kind of 3 parts that now I'm forgetting. Social workshops, and then
things
like
this.
recurring?
Yeah.
So we had like weekly events, one-off workshops, and social events?
Yeah.
Yeah, we took 2 of the 3 boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be my change, would be exploring that.
What events do you wish you could have run this year?
Oh man. Yeah, really happy with the crew stuff, that was really awesome. I definitely think like one thing I've always been passionate about, but I just couldn't solve this year, is just making Stray more of a community vibe. Like actually, like it's so cool seeing. I think everyone in this room was involved in shows, correct? Yeah. Seeing you guys show vibe, bond thing, cool, awesome. Taking that and putting it into Stray itself in the whole thing. So that way every show we do adds to a regular group that we have the whole year. But I just couldn't figure how to do that socially. So for example, we did a quiz night, and I think I couldn't make it, but we had, what, 4 people. And that's no one's fault in this room, but it just shows that we haven't answered that question of how, or I haven't answered that question of how to build a community wider than a show community, if that makes sense. So that would be not exactly an event, but a way to solve that answer. And definitely, I was gutted this year we didn't really do I wasn't able to do any acting, recurring event or workshop or anything like that. So I was a bit gutted because at the beginning of the year we did do like a theatre sports kind of vibe at our opening meeting, which was really cool. That was awesome. There's so much new energy in the room, new faces that I unfortunately don't see here today. So that was really grim, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say.
They could be there. Hello.
Yeah. Could be watching this back on YouTube.
Yeah. But I think it's just, I think that's one thing I think programs could really do, and I just wish I had the capacity to, is retain the people and create more of a Stray commitment or vibe outside of shows, more than just shows. And I don't think any programs manager before myself has been able to do that yet.
But it could be you.
No one forgot their hand.
Pointing directly down the camera at the person who's watching is going to be the best program manager ever, other than you. Why did you run programs manager?
Oh, I have no clue. It didn't make any logical sense for me. But I used to do a commitment back in the day, which was called Health Youth Council, which is very similar. So I missed that, and Kieran asked me if I'd be interested. I said you should look at it. And I really wanted to try solve that question that I was just talking about. But yet again, I wasn't able to do. But tapped on it. So yeah, that's why I wanted to do it. I really wanted to see how far we could go with events in Stray. And I think this year we tapped into something we hadn't done before, which was workshop ones, which is really cool. Thanks to everyone in this room for actually being there in those events when I couldn't be there.
Any questions for Jack about programs? Hello, Ben.
Yes.
Just like clarifying, programs manager can't produce a show.
Okay, I can't speak because I'm not president or vice, and I don't really make the rules. But I think there's a possibility of that being opened too. I don't know, but the reason why we didn't was because I particularly wasn't keen to produce a show. So I did.
We spoke about this before you got here.
Yeah. I think in short, it's a role that has a lot of demand in terms of trying to maintain social events, which in this case, what Jack as the program manager wanted to focus on. So when we were looking at our planning, we said it doesn't make sense for you to do a show. So we'll take that one away from you so that you can focus on producing the events and activities and workshops. But there's nothing saying that you can't do both. It just might be a little bit more work on your plate if you did.
Is that just the logistics or is that the...
It's mainly for programs.
Programs.
Marketing is not recommended because you're in all 4 shows working on it, and then it becomes a bit of an imbalance about where do you sit when making decisions. So that's where it can be a bit more challenging.
Additionally, just to go back to something we said earlier, and I think elaborate a little bit, is that part of the reason is that I think in previous years there's been a programs manager who produced a show at the same time and something had to give, basically, because it was a bit difficult to do both at the same time. But I think if a programs manager was very keen to spend, the first half of the year running lots of events and then put it on the back burner for the second half while they produced a show, I don't think that there isn't a rule that says that's not allowed. there aren't really a lot of rules that say this is or definitely isn't allowed. There are very few definites actually when it comes to the way things have to work. So.
Yeah, and on that, like Jono showed this year, he experimented with 3 producers, which I don't think Australia's done before. So I don't see why programs could piggyback on that at the end of the year. I know Stir Fry could always use another producer.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, what are you trying to say? Was that
no, I'm not saying
Okay, let's get back on track. Right.
I was like, touched a nerve.
Are there any questions? Yeah, you have one.
It's not really a question per se, but more of a note. So I love the workshops. My major problem was kind of like I've probably talked to some of the execs previously about this and how basically there's a lot of unfortunate events for like timing them, keeping them planned and whatnot. Because like I showed up to the early stuff, fantastic, all interesting and whatever, and then all the roles I ended up getting throughout the year were workshops which either didn't happen at the right time or just like fell through and such. So it was because I'd literally done no theatre before this year, so it's like that. The lighting workshop was fantastic, absolutely loved it. And stuff that exactly. But it's like, I mean, basically it's trying to. I mean, maybe it's more a suggestion, but trying to get stuff planned, like see if you can try and get it preempt potential failures. So, for example, there's a stage manager's workshop, and I would have loved it for doing low pay. And I got an email show week saying, hey, you signed up for a stage manager's workshop. Would you like to come to it?
Yeah.
I kind of had to politely sit there and ignore it and be like, I've got show week. I can't really go to a workshop. But
Yeah. Well, like for that one, for example, with Andrew, that was rescheduled because of his sick. But no, you're absolutely right. Like looking in hindsight, and hopefully that's where you can apply for the role and learn from my mistakes. And yeah, 100%. Like when I look back at it now, like I would imagine at the beginning of the year, bang them all out in 2 weeks, do 2 or 3 a week. But there was that concern that that would overload and people couldn't do all of them, so you wouldn't be able to have the time. But 100%, like my thought would be, at the beginning of each semester, run the same set of workshops over 2 weeks. Yes, but then that way they're set up for the shows, like what you explained. Yeah. Nah, great suggestion. I just highly recommend you apply for the role.
Any other questions about programs?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Oh gosh.
So Jack, I hear that you know a lot about elections. Do you have any advice on getting elected to be the programs manager?
I don't get what you're digging at. What?
You lost the rain.
What about that?
But have you got any advice?
That's in the past and no one else. Any advice?
Any advice for if you're running an election like that?
What do you mean?
Like if you've
like
got
for
two
programs
people
manager.
going for the same role.
Yeah.
The person.
Yeah, any other person that's been elected to a role that's got any advice?
Well, I think the way to think about it is if you're going to run for the role, and especially in a role that's going to highly benefit the people, like for example, treasurer, yes, that benefits the members, but it mainly benefits the committee, right? But whereas the programs, whatever I run is going to be for the members. So I would just say target the members and tell them what you're going to do, and hopefully they like it. So for example, if you guys said you want more snacks in the forums for next year, say that you'll feed them better. I don't know.
That would.
Or drinks. Drinks, Josh. Drinks.
You know when I say I need to be able to, you know when I say I need to be able to justify them.
Okay, any other questions about programs? Any other questions about anything?
Yeah.
Been here for a long time.
Can we apply for more than one?
Yes,
Oh, I put my name down for 3 roles. The Instagram post they put up last year was embarrassing. It was like, like this role affiliate, this role affiliate, this role affiliate. I was like, no, but like, yeah, you can put your name down for several. It's just the way it happened to work at the AGM last year was the first one that went was. I think you said, what do you want to pick to run for first.
Well, that was just a question I asked you in general. But,
And,
it's
but
more
like in
yeah.
the AGM, if you put your name down for multiple roles, you will probably have to get to the point where you pick which one you want to focus on, especially if there's nobody else running for some of those roles. So if you're the only person who wants 2 roles, you have to pick between which one you prefer.
When's the AGM?
9th of November.
November.
So we will be opening up our nomination forms this week.
Imminently.
Yeah. So the way that the nominations work is if you are interested in applying for a role, you fill out the form, but you need someone to second your nomination. And that just means someone to witness that you have done that.
You need the nomination and
Oh, you need a nominator as well.
Yeah.
You need a nominator and you need a seconder. And they just need to be a Stray member.
You don't have to be anyone of significance. Not that people aren't of significance. They just have to.
They have to be a Stray.
Like you don't have to like get an exec member to.
It can be, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's more for someone to be able to say, yes, I agree that they have contacted me to say that they will be running for this role. It's a constitutional university structure thing that we kind of have to follow. You'll need their contact number or an email address as well, because we need to reach out and say, hey, just confirming they didn't just put your name randomly. So you need you need a nominator and you need a seconder. If you're applying for more than one role, you still just need one nominator and one seconder. Do it in the same form. And that will come out soon, and that just gets checked in the AGM.
There's nothing about that means like, because when I looked at that, I was like, oh, do they have to vouch for me or something? Not really. Like they don't have to give a speech about why you'd be good for the role or anything like that. They just have to. You just have to. It's just like a competition thing. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and then at the AGM there'll be an election section, which will be usually towards the end, where you will go up and you will pitch to, I guess, whoever's present, why you are a good candidate for the role. The people that are in the room are the people that can vote. You can't, if you know that you are unable to attend, please email us, because then you can have proxy votes. And that means you can vote. We'll release the names of people who have been nominated for those positions. You can see them ahead of time, and if you have an opinion beforehand, you can send through your proxy vote, and that gets counted. So we'd recommend to please attend, or let us know if you are not attending. Only Stray members can vote and run for the position.
You can attend if you're not a Stray member, but you just don't.
Yeah, you can attend if you're not a Stray member, you just can't vote. But there's nothing stopping you from becoming a Stray member at the AGM to vote.
I should probably pay my name.
Have you not paid?
Okay, outed. But yeah. So on my sheet here, I wrote down some tips, and it was aim to end the event after roughly an hour.
I was having a good laugh there when I arrived.
I was very optimistic and quite wrong, but I'd just like to start by saying thank you so much for everyone who came. We really appreciate you being here. If you have any questions that you want to ask us as we pack up, please feel free to do that. If you have any questions for those who weren't here and you want to email it to us, just send us an email or send us a message, and we are happy to answer it for you. This live stream will probably be saved on our on our YouTube, so like and subscribe.
Oh, that was the other thing I did. I managed the YouTube, so when we posted stuff on YouTube, I did that. But that's a random
But thank you so much for coming along. We really appreciate you having here, and we'd love your feedback on this event, because it's the first time it's happened, and whether it's something that's
Adam, go end this room just yet because there's a delay. So
I'm not going to.
So thank you very much. Have
Thank
a
you.
lovely evening. Please take snacks.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Awesome. All right. Also, please vote on your favorite Doritos flavor.
It's gonna be spicy.
Spicy chili, there we go, my man! My man! Boo! Cheese supreme! It's okay to be wrong, John.
Cool, thank you.
And hope to see you at awards night, guys.
Yeah.
Awards night is next Wednesday.
Woo! Double Q.
Wait, next Wednesday? Awards is next Wednesday.